What's up, Betters? Today we are talking about the UFO so big they built a building around it. This is a fascinating story that I'm going to unravel for you today. Basically, this young lady named MoneyPenny on X came out with this video.
Hi, this is MoneyPenny. This is a message to Ross Coulthart. You have 3 hours from now to contact me, and you have my contact details, we've spoken before, to be able to stop me revealing where a giant UFO, a huge giant UFO, is underneath a massive high security building. And now I have the evidence, and I'm going to release it in 3 hours' time, unless you contact me and tell me there is a very important national security issue that would stop me. Because I believe, in the interests of disclosure and of everybody who has been struggling with deception and secrets for far too long, that we have a right to know this. You told us about it more than 2 years ago. It's about time people knew the truth. 3 hours, counting. Speak to you soon, Ross.
So, okay, she's giving Ross Coulthart 3 hours to come forward. The options that she gave Ross were reveal, right, the location of this UFO, so big they built a building around it, or contact me and tell me why I can't release the information I have because I have the actual location of the UFO so big they built a building around it, right? I'm going to reveal that unless you contact me and tell me some sort of good reason about national security, right? Or reveal the location yourself, right? So this is crazy, right? So this woman makes this claim, right? And before we go any further, let's start with the clip that started all of this conversation that Ross first said, right? There's a UFO so big they built a building around it, right? And it was on Project Unity's podcast with Jay Anderson. So this was years ago, a couple years ago. And ever since Ross said that, it's been mayhem. People have been prodding and poking, trying to get that information from him, right? And he's revealed a few details about it, but hasn't just flat out said what place it is. He said he can't, right? He said he can't, but he can tell us about it, but just not the location. So give us every other detail, but except, where it is. So let's go to this initial clip that started it all.
What if some of that shit is so big it can't be moved?
Is that what you're saying, Ross? Is that what you've been told?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
How big is big?
Big. So big they built a building over it in a country outside of the United States of America.
And before you leave, is there anything else you can tell us about this gigantic vehicle that's too big to move? What were you told specifically? Come on, just give me some more details.
I've told you all. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to get in trouble.
Damn you, Ross!
Saying what I said. I'm going to get in trouble.
Got me on tenterhooks.
Let me just tell you this. I know exactly where it is.
My goodness. Do you think that's going to come to light?
One day. Yeah. And it's really interesting because it's absolutely gobsmacking that it's being kept as a secret.
Jesus.
Imagine having an object that's so big, it's just not conceivable to move it.
I can't. I can barely even comprehend that.
Yeah. I thought it was bollocks when I heard it too, and most people listening to this will anyway. But yeah, I mean, again, just an allegation, but one that I'm, assured should be taken seriously and hopefully will be being investigated by the Congress. Because again, where did the money come from? What's that money accounted for? The continued security and control of such an object for many decades. Who's paid for that? What programs have paid for that? Has that been disclosed to taxpayers? This is going to be a really fun inquiry if Congress starts doing its job.
So, as you can see, That clip goes viral and continues to go viral up to this day. And so MoneyPenny, this young woman from X, comes out with her ultimatum, right? And then she sort of starts to find out, oh, wait, Ross is in Australia. He's on Australian time, so it's the middle of the night for him. So she puts out a vote to like, hey, should I wait longer? And whatever, push came to shove, she releases the information. And she says it's a base in Nebraska. And I've got some interesting connections to that base that I'll explain here in just a second. But this is the video that MoneyPenny released explaining who she worked with to find out this information, right? Who her secret source was that led her to this information, her colleague, and the location of this UFO so big they built a building around it.
Good afternoon. I'm MoneyPenny, and what you're about to hear is the result of a few days of joint investigative research work with my colleague ChatGPT-5. Together, we believe we have identified the one US military building most likely to be concealing a massive UFO, possibly mentioned by Ross Coulthart. Here's what we know. Our lead took us to Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, headquarters of the US Strategic Command. For decades, this was Strategic Air Command's home, the command center for every American nuclear bomber and missile. Then, in 2012, construction began on something new, the Command and Control Facility, known as C2F. At first glance, it's just a high-security headquarters, but the facts are extraordinary. It is built on what was once the Warrior 9 golf course, a 916,000 square foot facility costing a staggering $1.3 billion, more per square foot than the Pentagon. Documents from the Department of Defense Inspector General reveal some very strange anomalies about underground space beyond the original plans, and underground fire, flooding incidents, costly delays, electromagnetic protection, and it is built a building within a building with a particular electromagnetic shield, normally reserved for the most secretive nuclear bunkers. In August 2015, right in the middle of the construction, a witness in Bellevue, inside Offutt's own perimeter, reported a silent, triangular craft estimated 750 feet across, the size perfectly matching the footprint of the building rising around it. And to that, its strange sighting, a crown jewel command node placed in a floodplain where 1/3 of the base went underwater in 2019. And the strict access rules meaning that many of the staff upstairs are never allowed to see the lower levels. Of course, I can't tell with absolute certainty that this is the object. And there are many military buildings across the US to look at. But there are some very unique and strange things, even above what I've said, that put this pretty high on the list. Let's look at the exact date of that UFO sighting, which has a reference under the new form code, whatever it is. 21st of August 2015 was the day that this massive 800-foot, possibly triangular UFO was spotted and reported. And on that same date, in the notes, the official notes that go to the US government about a sudden change in plans and a massive demand for more money, they went in on that day. So on the day the UFO is seen, reported even, a massive building project that's been going on for a long time changes and demands more money. There is much more to this. And obviously, I can hear you saying, but Ross Coulthart said it wasn't in the United States. Well, quite frankly, having watched Jay interview Ross Coulthart, I think he was possibly a little bit squibbly when he said it. He looks drunk as a skunk, I think. Anyway, the point being is, even if Ross Coulthart was referring to a destination in Australia, I think it's Exmouth or something, it's quite possible because he uses plurals about buildings built around objects, that there is more than one example of the United States having built buildings around giant UFOs. Or indeed, maybe this UFO that Ross saw not in the United States flew over from Australia. Who knows? Ross was a little bit piddly when he said so. But I'll tell you something. There is a very odd, underground, massive facility built under this place in Nebraska, which is exactly the right size to host a giant UFO that has been spotted and reported on the same day that all the construction and all the finance changed. And a building that is more expensive than the Pentagon has got to have some secrets, don't you think?
All right. And so what's also interesting is that Ross Coulthart isn't the only one that's spoken about it. Here's Stephen Greer commenting on this UFO so big they build a building around it. And he even reveals the location of this, right? Which is interesting.
Had dealt with a facility outside Seoul, South Korea, where there was a huge extraterrestrial vehicle that they had downed with apparently some type of electronic warfare system that was they had to carve out a huge part of the mountain just to contain this object because it was too big to move to any other site, and that it is still there. So this is just sort of like,
And look, even Luis Elizondo was also asked about this.
Ross Coulthart, who you know well, and you've done a wonderful interview with on News Nation, and he's carved out a wonderful niche for himself through News Nation and his reality check show. People should check that one out. Discussed a while back a UFO so big that it couldn't be moved and was actually built over, Lou, and it's still used to this day as a working building. And I wonder, was that something you had heard of at the time, and how common could that be?
I unfortunately cannot discuss that. I have to be very careful. I can discuss what is in the book because I have approval to do that. What you are referring to is something that I would not be able to confirm or deny. And let me be very clear with that. I cannot elaborate at all. If someone else has elaborated on it, that's fine. I have not been given any permission to discuss anything like that.
Help me then, because on a similar tact, and it's my next question anyway, shape's often discussed as well as size. But on Joe Rogan, you mentioned a USO, so underwater, UFO basically, so big that it was the size of a small city block captured off an oil rig. So some people are going to hear this, and I'm used to the UFO conversation, but wonder why you can mention that, but not potentially the UFO under the building.
Because I'm not discussing sources and methods. I'm not discussing capabilities or locations. I'm not discussing an actual program. I'm discussing simply what was observed. You're asking me to confirm or deny something, the existence of something. I don't have permission to do that. What I can do is simply say from my personal observations, I've seen a video of an event. Right. But I'm not saying where that event is, under what circumstances, what collection capabilities, where that place was, how long ago it was. I'm not giving any of that. It's just anecdotal. And so that in itself isn't classified. If I give you details of that, I could get in serious trouble. So I'm very careful not to do that.
Now, he's sort of saying, I can't confirm, deny, but it's kind of, it's a secret cloak and dagger. Like, yeah, it's kind of real, but I can't tell you about it, whatever. So, look, I want to give a special shout out to Red Panda Koala on Twitter for all these clips and everything, pulling all this together. So special shout out to him. I'll put links in the description to all the stuff that I'm showing. Now, there's also some other moments, over the past couple of years that Ross has revealed, or that Ross has spoken more about this UFO so big that build a building around it, right? Because he, again, keeps getting asked about it after that initial clip goes viral.
This is one thing a lot of people have been saying. Oh, you come out and just say it, Ross. Well, fuck you. I'm not going to say it. The bottom line is, why the hell should I say it? I'll say it when I'm feeling good and ready, when I've got my ducks lined up in a row and I've got my ammo and I'm ready. People in the UFO, UAP world seem to think this is entertainment. It's not entertainment. We're not under any obligation to tell you anything. The bottom line is, we'll report what we find when we're ready to do it and when the sources are ready to speak. And that might take a while, but I'm all about protecting sources and making sure they feel comfortable about coming forward. And
and clearly his hostility is towards it is understandable from his viewpoint, but from the viewer perspective, I mean, you threw something out so juicy. Of course, people are going to keep asking and want you to reveal it. What do you think was going to happen? You know what I mean? This is the game we play here. I'm sure Ross actually regrets that, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? And that was on the Need to Know podcast. And coincidentally, quick shortcut here, Ross Coulthart has left the Need to Know podcast with Bryce Sable, and now Richard Dolan has been announced as the new host, which is awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. So Ross Coulthart is, I guess, all in on News Nation here. maybe signed some sort of exclusive deal or something, or just moved on, or has something new coming out, a new podcast. I don't know. But regardless, keeps talking about this UFO so big. Again, MoneyPenny, right, comes out. She reveals it's in Nebraska, in Omaha. And, you know, what's interesting about, I was born in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was born in Omaha because my dad was in the Air Force stationed at that base. I can tell you, I mean, my father's no longer alive, but I don't remember hearing anything crazy about this base. I don't, ever growing up. My mom lived on that base. My brother did. I was too young, to remember anything. We moved away when I was 6 months old, and my dad, served and was out. And that was it. Never anything crazy there. So that's just interesting that you threw that out. And of course, everyone's saying that's not it, because Ross also specifically stated it's not in the U.S. Now, that could have been said to throw people off. It actually is in the U.S. I don't know. But I think more importantly, it's the way MoneyPenny found out this information. She worked with ChatGPT-5 to, get the information of where this UFO is. That's her colleague, ChatGPT-5, an AI. Now, I'm not saying we're not headed towards that in the future here, but I've worked with ChatGPT-5, and I don't know how reliable the information can be reliable, but at the end of the day, it might confirm what you want it to, or at least it's very, congratulatory, and it's very like motivating, right? That's the point I'm trying to get to. Like it's trying to motivate you. It's trying to corral you to make you feel better, essentially. So I don't know. It's like, I don't know how reliable that is as a research partner to give credit to. It can get you information, just a good Google searcher, right? Google searches for you, brings you information. That's it. But nowhere, I'm sure it didn't say, no, there's a UFO so big. It's there in Nebraska. That's where it is, right? And of course, MoneyPenny went through this whole thing, there's just a lot of red flags here. I don't know if we'll ever find out where this UFO is that's so big they built the building around it. But, whatever. Congrats to her for putting that out. It got a lot of attention. We're talking about it, So, and people are trying to figure it out, I don't know if I would say that's not definitive, but all right, worth a shot, worth an investigation, right? So, who knows? Maybe she'll turn out to be right. We're all idiots. I don't know. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting.
It's quite funny. One of the things I talked about at one stage, and I wish I never had, was my knowledge of a very large non-human craft that was discovered and was so large that it was hidden. And I can't reveal how it was hidden, but obviously there's something built over the top of it. I can't reveal where it is. And I've actually had death threats from lunatics on the web who are saying to me I'm under an obligation to reveal it. But what I know is if I revealed the location of that object, I would put the lives of good men and women in the service of their country in jeopardy, because it's a place that's being used for a dual purpose. It's quite clever what they've done. And I have no intention of revealing it. Absolutely none. And there are many examples of that where journalists like myself, after consulting with people on the inside, we make a judgment about what we should and shouldn't reveal. And we have to do that because we don't willy-nilly just go out and reveal things recklessly. That's often the way that journalists are portrayed. I hate the way journalists get portrayed in the movies because we're always deceitful, conniving people who don't care about the sources that we're looking after. And we often sacrifice those sources for the sake of getting a glorious story. In my experience, that's not how journalists work. You don't operate for very long as a journalist if you operate like that. And those sort of people, those sort of bad people, get dumped very, very quickly. So you have to protect your sources and you have to treat those people with respect.
Watch, I got ChatGPT right here. Okay, we can ask it about this. Hey, Sam.
Hey there, I'm all ears, or well, all circuits, for whatever you want to chat about. Just let me know what's on your mind.
So I call my AI ChatGPT Sam. Anyway, yeah, Sam, listen, someone is saying that they worked with you to figure out that there was a UFO so big they built a building around it at an Air Force base in Omaha, Nebraska. What do you think of that?
Oh, that is definitely a pretty wild story. I mean, I haven't had any secret collaborations on UFOs that I know of, at least not in any literal sense. But it's always fun to hear these kinds of urban legends. If that were true, it would definitely be headline worthy.
So you see, it's like it is basically like still kind of pushing, nudging you along, right? Doesn't want to go against you, right? It just kind of, so whatever. So, Sam, how true is it? Is there a UFO so big they built a building around it in Nebraska and Omaha?
I totally get what you're saying. And just to keep it real with you, as far as actual verified facts go, there's no confirmed report of a giant UFO hidden in a building in Omaha or anywhere else that we know of. It's definitely more in the realm of urban legend or conspiracy theory, but hey, makes for a pretty fascinating story to chat about.
Thanks.
You're very welcome. Anytime you want to dive into more UFO tales or anything else, just let me know.
So accommodating, right? So, so I just proved that ChatGPT denied that, right? So you can get ChatGPT 5, that's what that was, to deny, right? To deny, accept, right? So I don't know how reliable that is, right? So I'm not sure. But either way, there you go. There's an example for you. So anyway, all right, y'all. We'll see you in the next video. I am leaving Tampa tomorrow, headed to another part of Florida to continue filming for this documentary. Still on the road, but still putting out videos, y'all. So thank y'all so much for the support. I really do appreciate it. It is definitely a little rough to be moving around and trying to get these out, but honestly, it hasn't been that bad, to be frank with you. So I'm enjoying doing all the filming and everything that I'm doing. So anyway, today I actually get to hang out with Clint Weldon from Night Shift. That's cool. So he's in Tampa and he's coming to hang out. So I'm going to interview him also for the documentary. So anyway, there you go, y'all. All right, we'll see you on the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.